So we're going to talk about professionalism. And when I spoke with Dr. Sheik about what we were going to discuss in this session, we're talking about professionalism. And I wanted to focus before, during, and after the interview, because you don't just wake up professional. It's something that happens over time. And the things that you do now, believe it or not, it's preparing you to become a professional or preparing you to be professional. So I just wanted to let you know we're going to talk about all of those things. Okay, so just a little bit about me, and can you guys hear me okay? I assume yes, but okay, just wanted to make sure. This is my 18th year working in education. I've worked in K-12, in higher ed, and I've also worked for, at the time, it was a textbook company, but now they're an educational solutions company. They do, of course, they had to transition with the time, so they do a lot of online things as well. So I worked for that company for a few years. So overall, it's my 18th year in education. I worked 2 years in the corporate world as a technical writer. My degree was in English originally. I was going to be this writer, and then I, of course, got bit by the education bug and have been very happy that I made the transition to education because it's wonderful. I love it. I am on the board of directors for the Greater Birmingham Auburn Club. I'm a lifestyle blogger. I also have a podcast that I'm really excited about that talks about all things education. And then I'm also on the school improvement team at my daughter's school. And I say all that just for 2 reasons, so that you get to know a little bit about me, but because all of those things have something in common. There is a level of professionalism that is expected at all of those things. Anything that I do, I'm expected to show up as a professional. So I wanted to just point that out. So what is professionalism? Professionalism is a skill or behavior that goes beyond what an ordinary person would have, or behaving in a more formal or business-like manner. Then I put an example. An example of professionalism is a business person who is dressed in a suit and tie, they have good manners, and they show business sense. Now, I said that so that I could put you in the mind. When you think professional, we do think someone in business, they're dressed up, but it goes beyond just the look. We know that we don't necessarily, as teachers, come to school in a shirt and tie or a business suit every day, but we still have to have those mannerisms that set us apart as a professional. So I saw this, I saw this little wordplay. I can't even think of the name of these things, but I love them. When I saw professional in bold, and then I looked at those words, and I'll give you a minute just to look at those words, or to be thought of, or when you think professional, you think that's somebody that's skilled. And as educators, we definitely want to be skilled. We have that skill set that allows us, or that helps us to be able to teach someone something. We have to be knowledgeable. We have to be competent. We need to be talented, reputable, credible, reliable, and qualified. And I know you can probably think of so many other words that could be on this, but those are the ones that really stuck out to me when I thought about a professional. Does anyone have any other words that you would add to this? What other words when you think about someone who is professional? I know one person's name in this group, and I don't want to have to call you out. What other words would you, or could you add to this list when you think of someone as professional? And not just in education, but anywhere, because professionalism is professionalism.
Well-spoken.
Say it again.
Well-spoken.
Well-spoken, yes.
Don't be shy. Everybody said one.
Yeah, don't be shy. It's just me.
They said it at the same time. What did you say? Mature.
Mature, definitely.
Polite.
Yes.
Respectful.
Respectful, yes.
Honest.
Honest, trustworthy, confident, yes.
Assertive.
Assertive.
Louder.
Those are all things that You know, you think about when you're thinking about someone who is professional. And as teachers, I know sometimes we discount ourselves because we're not these, you know, business people or whatever the case is, but we are professionals. We need to be treated as professionals, and we need to act as professionals. I'm going to figure this out before the before the presentation is over. I'm still working through this. So how is professionalism judged? It's judged by our image. Would you agree? Yes, when you look at someone, you make a decision whether or not you think they're professional by their image. And I don't mean just necessarily the clothes that they wear. Of course, we do associate a suit with professionalism, but you can be professional without wearing a suit. You have to have a look about you, though. You have to be, you know, good posture. You have to have a positive demeanor, a confident demeanor. They're looking at your hair. They're looking at your nails. I mean, it's unfortunate sometimes, but when we think about a society what professional is, we know that there is a standard that's expected for someone that is a professional, right? Professionalism is judged through our communication. I heard someone say assertive. You have to be able to assert yourself in a positive way. I like to say outspoken, but not arrogant. You want to be confident in what you speak. Our professionalism is also judged through our competence. How well do we know about the subject that we're supposed to know about? If you're my teacher and I ask you something about your subject matter, are you competent? Do you know what you're talking about? And if you don't know, because you're not going to know everything. I've been teaching, again, like I said, for 18 years, and there are things that I don't know, but I'm very resourceful. I'm going to find out. And that's what a professional does. You don't just say, oh, I don't know, and you don't make up an answer. You want to make sure that you are competent in what you know, you're competent and you know what your weaknesses are, and you know how to compensate for those. So that's how professionalism, that's another way that professionalism is judged also. We are also judged, or professionalism is also judged by our demeanor. And we have to remind even our teachers right now, everybody, I was talking earlier with the group upstairs about how this is just a very, very, very unconventional school year for teachers. And a lot of teachers are not very confident in what they're doing as far as the online learning and online teaching goes. This is out of some of our teachers' realm, especially some of our teachers who have been teaching for a longer time, and maybe they taught before computers were really popular in the classroom. So they're, you know, used to their traditional ways of teaching and doing things. So they're having to really get, you know, comfortable with some new things, but the way you act about it lets people know if you're a professional. Are you complaining about it constantly? Do you look just tired and worn out? Are you sad or grumpy or angry or whatever because you're having to do all of these things? That is how your professionalism is judged. Even when things aren't necessarily going the way you want them to go, are you still being calm and confident? You got to remember, you have students who are looking at you and who are feeding off of you. And if you are constantly complaining and being upset and sad about what we're doing, then that's going to rub off on them. So you have to remain calm and confident, and you have to do things in that way so that you can remain professional. And if at any time you have questions while I'm going through this presentation, please feel free to stop me. We're very informal here, so you can let me know if you have questions, and I'm willing to stop, but we can ask them at the end also if you want to jot them down, whatever you feel the most comfortable doing. So this is really wordy, but these are all things that I didn't want to leave out. We talked about some of these words and you said them already, so kudos to you. Characteristics of professionals: we're competent, you are trustworthy, you're respectful, you act with integrity, you're considerate, you're empathetic, you're courteous, dependable, cooperative, and committed. And I want to go back for a minute to that whole cooperative. A lot of people are not, you know, we do in our colleges now do a great job of collaboration, and encouraging collaborations amongst our students. That is something that definitely you will do as you transition to your career. That is something that's almost, I mean, I can't think of anything that I've done in a really long time at work that I've done by myself. So if that is not something that you're comfortable with, you might want to get comfortable with it before you go into the interview. And you definitely want to be confident in saying that that's something that you are comfortable doing, because that is going to be an expectation. I can almost guarantee it, because we have so many teachers who are team teaching, and especially while we're in this new environment, teachers are working together now more than probably ever. But it's something that I just wanted to point out, and you need to be professional in those interactions with those other teachers. So I wanted to bring that up and point that out while we were there. So how do you become professional? And I said at the beginning, it doesn't happen overnight. It's something that happens over time. You are developing those professional skills right now. So these are some things that you need to practice before you enter your career, before you go into the interview or anything like that. These are some things that you need to do now that affect your perceived level of professionalism. So think about it. Do you show up consistently for class? If you have class scheduled on Tuesday and Thursday, are you there? Because you got to think, you haven't had a career. So your interviewer will probably ask you things about how you were as a student, or how you were as a student teacher, or when you were doing your field experience. So can you say confidently that you show up consistently and on time? That's the next thing. Are you on time? Are you responsible? Do you turn in high quality work? Is your work turned in on time? Do you work well with others? If you're given a task, do you complete it? And do you take criticism well? Those are all things that I want you to think about. And you may want to, and I will record that. It is recording, so you'll be able to see these, but those are things that you need to think about, because those are things that your interviewer or your panel, whoever, some people may get just a one-person interview, but oftentimes there's going to be other people, and it could even be other teachers in your interview. And those are things that they're going to possibly ask you. And you need to be prepared for, to be able to answer that question confidently. And I want to go over those questions again. Do you consistently show up for class? Because if you aren't doing those things now, then how can I, as a principal, trust that you're going to do that when you're my teacher? Are you on time for class? That's very important as a teacher. You got to be there before the students get there. You can't be sliding in and getting ready as they're getting off the bus. Like, that's just not how it works. So you got to think about that. When you are working as a teacher, you've got to be there, and you've got to be there consistently. I don't know, Dr. Sheik and Dr. Washington can probably speak to that. I hated being out for a day, because it was harder for me to get ready for a sub than it was for me to I dragged myself. If I wasn't contagious, I would drag myself to work sick, because it's too hard to be out. So you've got to get used to being able to push through, I just don't feel like it today, those types of things, because you have other people depending on you. And it is so much, like I said, so much easier to just be there. And that's what your interviewers are going to want to know. Do you have it in you to be there consistently, be there on time? Are you responsible? Are you turning in high quality work? Because that is going to reflect at how you're going to be as a teacher. Are you going to, and you're going to expect that from your students. You're going to expect them to turn in high quality work. So you can't expect something from someone else that you haven't done. So you want to, think about that too, when you're turning in things or when you're doing things. Your principal is going to want to know, or the person interviewing you is going to want to know, if I give you a task, can I depend on you to get that task done? I don't want to have to follow up with you 50 times and ask you, questions. Have you done, and I expect it when I tell you that I need it. And I don't want you, and I'm being hypothetical here, I'm not going to be the one interviewing, but I don't want to have to, want to be depending on something, and then the day comes that I need it and it's not there. So you just want to think about all of those things. So when should you be professional? When you're networking. Anytime you are networking, and I think about that as when you're in your field experience, you're networking because you're there at a school with a teacher, with principal, with other staff that you're seeing. You want to be professional in your interactions with them. When you're communicating with a potential employee, anytime, if you're talking to them, asking questions, if you are emailing them, even those emails to your principal, when you are doing field experience or when you're doing your student teaching, you want to be professional. You want to use correct grammar. You want to sound confident, those things. You want to be courteous. Anytime there are guest speakers, if you have a guest speaker in your class or anything like that, if you're doing a professional development, you want to be professional in your interaction with those people. Anytime you're in a business setting, if you're doing an interview, and it doesn't matter if your interview is on the phone or if it's in person, you want to maintain that same level of professionalism. Don't say just because it's on the phone, I don't have to do this. And I encourage you, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, if you have a phone interview or a Zoom interview, because those are kind of popular right now with coronavirus, you want to, I wouldn't, and this is kind of, I don't know, it's up to you, but I would still kind of dress up, and you don't necessarily have to go all out and dress up, but I feel that when you're dressed up, you act differently. So you want, like, when you dress more professional, you act professional. There's studies that show that all over, so you want to make sure that you don't just say, it's a phone interview, I'll just take it in my pajamas, because I feel like if you're doing that, then you're going to kind of be relaxed, and you don't want to do that, especially if that's the initial time that you have met, if it's that first time that you've met with that principal. And I say any situation that could impact your career. So anytime you're at any event or any kind of recruiting, like, how the recruiters come from this to the school sometimes to try to recruit teachers, you want to be professional in all of those interactions. People remember that. And if you are, standing out from the rest, that's going to be something that they're going to remember when they see your name come across for an interview, or if you if you apply for a job or something like that. So you definitely want to try to maintain that professionalism in all of these types of situations. So first impressions, I wanted to talk about that. Though first impressions are only 67% accurate, they impact how people treat you. So your first impression, or the first impression that you give off to someone when you meet them, is only 67% accurate. Just because you are wearing something that's not professional, if your hair is not in the professional, whatever, if it's only 67% accurate. We know that, but it still doesn't affect how people view us. So that goes back to me talking about image. Our image that's how people judge our professionalism. So I wanted to put that statistic out there. So let's talk a little bit about professional appearance. You want to be clean and pressed. You don't want to have stains on your clothes if you can avoid that. You don't want to be all wrinkled. So just make sure that you're clean and pressed. You're not too flashy. Your fingernails are clean. You have on minimal jewelry. You're not wearing too much perfume, and you're not wearing anything that's too tight or too revealing. When you pick out your outfit, make sure that you look, and you turn around and you look again and look again. You want to make sure that you are not, sending the wrong message. It's just the nicest way that I know to say it. So just, take these things into consideration. And that sentence at the bottom is what I was just saying previously. Studies show that if you look professional, you're inclined to be and to act professional. Your body language, this is very important. You want to maintain good posture. You want that posture to be, send off the message that you are confident. Even if you are nervous, you don't want to be, timid and withdrawn. You want to make sure that you are up straight and that you are looking the part. You are looking like you are confident. You want to make eye contact with the person that you're interviewing. And if you have several people on your interview panel, make sure to take time to make eye contact with everyone in the room. You're not just one person. You don't want to just talk to one person, and you want to be real cognizant of that, because it's easy to do that, especially when you're nervous, to just look at one person or to try to avoid or try to look through them. You want to look them in the eye and be confident. And I put a firm handshake, and then I put in parentheses when it's okay to shake hands again. I know that you probably won't feel comfortable doing that right now, and they'll understand that. You want to be calm and confident. You want to try to mask any nervousness that is there. It's a natural tendency to be nervous, but just try to be calm as you can. Take some deep breaths. Don't fidget. And I skipped one. You want to make sure that you maintain a positive facial expression. Don't play with your hair. Don't appear distracted by doing things like checking your phone, or what we have noticed is these smartwatches lately. Don't keep looking down, because it makes it look like you're looking at the time, like you got somewhere else that you need to be. So avoid that. If you can, before you leave, disable it so that it's not vibrating and getting you distracted, because you do not want to, when they're talking to you or asking a question, have to do this and give off the wrong impression. Even if it's unintended, you want to just not do it. And you know what, maybe you could not even wear it for the few minutes that you're going to be in the interview. So that is something that I definitely wanted to point out, because I think that we do it unconsciously, but you don't want to do that, because it definitely sends off the wrong message. And then don't adopt a defensive pose, like with your arms crossed or your fist ball. You just don't want to have any of them. Be very, very intentional about not doing those things. You don't want to come across, even if this is something that you do a lot, you just want to be real intentional to not do those things. Don't want to send off the wrong message. When you're speaking, you want to think before you speak. That think time is important. Don't feel like you have to be rushed to say something. Take a couple of seconds to get your thoughts together so that what you intend to come out actually comes out. You want to use proper grammar. You don't want to interrupt, and you want to make sure that you are speaking clearly. So what if, and there's a strong possibility that you may have a phone meeting, or you may be meeting virtually. Be friendly, be prepared, listen carefully, speak clearly, and again, be present. This is something that we have seen. Avoid checking your phone. Don't talk to others in the background. Don't do those things. When you're at a virtual interview, you want to treat it just like you're face-to-face. You want to do the same things, and you would never turn and talk to someone in the background. If you were in person, of course, no one would be there, but you have to, block out those distractions. And if you can be alone, try to do that so that you don't get distracted by things that are happening in the background. Do exactly what I did. I disabled my phone so that it wouldn't ring while I was on this presentation with you. So make sure you do those things so that you're not having those distractions while you're in your interview.
Dr. Fluker, can I mention something here?
Yes, ma'am.
Even here for faculty at Judson, we've done some virtual phone calls, or the Skype meeting is like your first interview so often, and we see some weird backgrounds, like your bed, like your child, like sometimes they'll be in their
that is, yes.
It's a man with pink around him. It's so off-putting. Not fair. He didn't mean to be. His daughter's bringing up to raise this weird vibe, but where your background.
Watch your background.
Yes. Please keep those things in mind. We have seen that too, and it is something that we definitely talk about when we get off the call. So that is something very good that you brought up. And they have these virtual backgrounds, and you really need to be careful with those too. I know, and you probably said this, I couldn't hear you quite at the end.
Yeah, that's a good point. Don't be on the beach.
You want to be really careful with choosing those. Some of them are a distraction. So if you can choose a solid one, like if you are somewhere and you don't want people to see what's in your background, it's okay to use a virtual background, but be careful in the one that you choose. You don't want to choose one that's, silly or that is distracting. Like, they have some where you're at the beach and but if you can do a solid one, that's the best choice, just so that it's not distracting for the person that's interviewing you. Okay, so on to the job search. Some tips and suggestions. You obviously want to apply on the state website, but make sure that your information is up to date and accurate. And I'm going to say that again. make sure that your information is up to date and accurate, because we have had some situations where we would see an application and we were very interested in the person, but then when we went to try to contact the person, their information was incorrect. Make sure that your information is up to date and accurate. One thing, I mean, the resume can be great, but we just don't always have time to investigate, is what I say, so if you do your part, and again, that's something else about being professional. It is expected as a senior that you may move, you may move off campus, you may move, somewhere in the interim while you're searching for a job. Make sure that your information is up to date. If you have a Judson email, but that's not the email that you're going to be checking when you graduate, then change that email address to one that you're going to select. And I'll say this, if it's not your Judson email, please make sure that it is a very generic, first name, last name kind of email, and not some, weird, fun, you don't want to do that. You want your email address to be something professional. So if you're not going to use your Judson email, then try to create one. If you don't have one already, that's just a generic name, that kind of thing that you'll use just for business purposes. Network with teachers that you know. Those are the people that, teachers talk all the time, so they know when positions are becoming available. I was speaking, and I forget your name upstairs. I'm sorry. Is it Morgan? Yeah, okay. I was talking to her about, teachers are talking, and there are some teachers who are, having to leave the profession right now. They're having to make difficult decisions because either they may have someone at home that is at risk and they don't want to make themselves susceptible. There's just lots of very interesting things that are happening this year with teaching positions that are coming available. We are in the process of hiring some teachers right now just because of some different circumstances. Our teachers are at risk themselves, or they have someone at home, or, sometimes even some of them, this online teaching is just more than they're willing to invest in right now. I guess that's the nicest way to say that. So they're choosing to leave the profession. So there are some positions that are coming available at very weird times. So, those teachers, if you know teachers from your field experience, or if you know teachers and family, they may know some things. So network as much as you can. Email principals directly to inquire about vacancies. You never know who or what may happen. Some teachers are choosing to retire, and so it would be good for you if you know principals, just email and ask them about any vacancies that they may have. And then when you are communicating with them, remember to be competent, to be confident, to be enthusiastic, and to be professional.
Dr. Fluker, is it still good advice for the candidates to bring a physical resume to the school?
Yes, and I think I have that on my next slide. Very first thing on that next slide. Prepare extra copies of your resume to take with you to the interview. You never know what may happen. So once you get that call and you have an interview coming up, go ahead and print you some copies. And we still like to see them on that nice professional paper. So if you have that, then use that. But yes, always bring one, because you never know what can happen, especially with technology at some of these schools right now. So you go ahead and bring a copy. You always want to have it in hand when you come. It is appropriate for you to ask about the format of the interview if it's not communicated to you. So it's usually going to be the secretary at the school who is going to call you to set up that interview. It is perfectly acceptable for you to ask about, what would the format of the interview be, so that if you're expecting to have one person in the interview or if there are going to be 6 people in the interview. Because one thing you don't want to happen is for you to expect one person and then you get in there and there's 5 people. So it's perfectly fine to ask that question. Research who is interviewing you. If they give you a name, if you know that it's going to be the principal of the school, look around on the school website and find out some things about the principal, just so that you can use that as an advantage while you're in that interview. Who you're dealing with. If that person is Dr. such and such. Just little things like that show that you have gone that extra mile to find out information. That's always wonderful. It's always impressive. Dress professionally. I say that you dress a little bit dressier than what you would wear in the classroom. But again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a suit. Suits are always appropriate, but you do want to be a little bit dressier than what you would be in a typical classroom. Be early, at least 15 minutes early. Prepare for traffic. You never know what traffic's going to do. Prepare for spills. If you happen to spill coffee on yourself, you have to think about all of those things and take them in consideration so that you can be there on time. And if something happens that is out of your control, because even if you do leave 15 minutes early and then you get in traffic or there's an accident, communicate to that school, let the secretary know, or whoever set up the interview with you, let them know that you're running late. That's always appropriate. So do that. But you want to make every effort to be there on time, because 9 times out of 10, they're either going to have an interview right before yours or after yours. So you just want to be considerate. That's part of being professional as well. Think about this, and this is a question that trips so many people up, and it should be the easiest question, but think about how you would respond to the tell me about yourself question. You're almost always, I can probably guarantee you're going to get a question like that or something similar. Be prepared. Think about how you will respond. What do you want people to know about you? And that's a hard question, because we don't really, it can be really difficult, but you want to take some time to prepare an answer to that question. You don't want to sound practiced, but you want to think about what are those things about you that are going to make you stand out from the other candidates. And I'm just going to tell you, if you're applying in Jefferson County, it's probably going to be about 200 other people or more that are applying for that one position. We get lots of applications. And so you want to, if you make it to the interview stage, then you want to be able to say something about yourself that's going to make them remember you when you leave. Everybody that we interview is going to have a bachelor's degree. Everybody that we interview has had field experience. Everybody has done student teaching. What is it about you? What unique experiences do you have that sets you apart from the other people? Now, they're not going to interview 200 people, but let's say they interview 10 or 15. What's going to set you apart? What have you done? What volunteer experiences have you done? What opportunities have you had in your student teaching or your field experience that was really great? What are those aha moments? What are the things that you are most proud of? What organizations are you a part of that have been beneficial for, or that would contribute well to you being in the classroom? What leadership skills do you possess? What have you done? Have you been on SGA? Have you done, what have you led at your school, or, any organization that you've been in? Say those things, because that's always going to be helpful. Do you play sports? Because that would really, some high school principals, they're like, I'm looking for a soccer coach, or I'm looking, you never know what opportunities may come your way. And I'll also say this, if that's not something that you're interested in doing, then don't say something about it, because they're going to ask you, if they hear you and you say, I played soccer, they're gonna say, ooh, maybe you could be a soccer coach. And if it's not something you're interested in, you may not want to share it. So like I said, just really think about how you're going to answer that question. Let's see, where was I? Okay, do your research about the school or the district. Most school districts, I would say all, have a website. Take some time to look at that school website before you go into that interview with that school or with that principal. You want to make sure that you know something about the school. What initiatives are they doing? What are they doing as far as social emotional learning? All of those things, and try to be knowledgeable about, you can say, oh, I really love what you're doing with blah, blah, blah. That shows that you have taken the time to research the school, and you're not just hopping in here looking for any old job. You have a connection. Oh, I volunteered with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I see that you partner with them. That would be something that would be a great connection to make. Don't ask about salary or benefits in the initial interview. Most of the time you can find it on the state website anyway. And always ask questions. Remember, if you want to know if this is a good fit for you. So when they ask you if you have questions, it is very appropriate for you to ask a question. So I would say at least have 1 or 2 questions that you want to know. You can ask the principal about, his or her leadership style. You could ask them about their expectations of teachers. You can ask them, if you weren't able to find the information, what extracurriculars do you have at the school? You want to know if this is a good fit for you. This is a huge decision. They're interviewing you, but you're interviewing them too, to see if you're a good fit, like if it's a good mutual fit. So it's very appropriate to ask questions, and it almost comes off as, I don't know the word that I want to use, but you want to have some questions. It's always kind of discouraging when we have people that'll say no, they don't have any questions. So always try, find one or two. And if you want to ask the same one or two on every interview, that's fine. But just make sure that you want to know something about the place that's going to be your potential employer. In the interview, and I'm watching time. How much time do I have? Do I need to?
I'm just going to let everybody go who has a 1 o'clock class.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
And we will see you later. Thank y'all for coming. Y'all tell Dr. Fluker something nice that you learned. Real super quick. Thank you for giving us tips about all.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for telling us about what questions you asked.
I couldn't hear the end. It's the math.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great rest of the day.
The characteristics of how you get out.
Yes, you're welcome.
Have a good class.
Yes, and I won't be much longer. So when you get to the interview, you want to introduce yourself confidently. And that's very important, because sometimes the resumes may get mixed up. So you want to make sure to introduce yourself so that they know that they're interviewing the correct person. You want to relax, take a deep breath. I told you, I know you're going to be nervous. That's natural, but just, try to fake it till you make it. Try to be as calm as you can. As the interviewer, that should say the interviewer, to repeat the question if you didn't hear them. That's important. If you didn't hear what they said, ask them to repeat it, because you want to make sure that you are responding to their question the right way or with the right statement. So ask them for clarification if you are unsure of the question that they ask, or if there's some words that they use in a question, if they use some acronyms that you're unsure about, ask them for clarification. For example, let's say they ask you about a 504. It's not, you're not expected to know everything. Don't try to answer a question though without knowing for sure what they're asking you about. If they say, maybe they have, excuse me, maybe they have an initiative at their school that is something that you've never heard of, and they ask you about that specifically, just ask them, I'm not familiar with that. Can you tell me what it is? And then respond. You're never going to get, it's okay to ask those types of questions. What you don't want to do is try to throw out some answer just to give them an answer, and then not be talking about the right thing. You don't want to do that. If they ask you, I think I said that, if they ask you if you have questions, and they will, ask a question, and then make sure to thank the interviewer for their time. That's always very, very appropriate to do that. Make sure that you're speaking clearly and confidently. I think I said that I wasn't sure, and I don't want to skip it, because you do want to be clear and confident. And then that is the last slide. I knew I was getting close to the end. I kept looking at the time because I was like, I had this timed out, so I would be right at 12:55. But that's all that I have. But I don't have anything to do right immediately, so I can answer some questions. I have until 1:15. So if anyone wants to ask anything, I'm happy to answer or try.
I am so curious about the delivery. So now they're all applying through Teach Alabama. Should they also bring a resume to the principal?
I would.
Okay, just to the schools that they're most interested in. They can apply, everywhere in the state. What advice do you have for that?
About, say that again.
So let's say that Jessica's willing to teach anywhere in the state. So
right.
Applied at Alabama everywhere, but she should take a hard copy of the resume to 5 schools that she most wants to go to. Is that
so? And I probably would do a little bit of research before I just took them anywhere. That's where that networking comes in. Maybe Jessica knows someone that is, has told her that they're looking for, we're going to be looking for a remote teacher. I'm using that as an example because we are looking for a remote teacher. I would then, if that's something that I'm interested in, then I would go ahead. I mean, because you may hear about it before it gets on that state website, and that happens a lot too. I would, to make that, if it's a school that you really want to work for, because I know sometimes people are, I know this is where I want to work. This is my home school, or this is where me and my future husband are going to move, and I need a job in this area. It is fine to go ahead and make that introduction. That's not a bad thing to do at all, to bring those resumes. I have resumes on my desk a lot, and I do try, if someone will say to me, oh, I'm looking for a such and such, I'm like, oh, I have that on my desk, or I have this in this file. And it's easy, it saves time, because I'll just be real honest, when we go on when I look, I get so overwhelmed on the Teach in Alabama, because you're looking at black and white and there's so many. Now, when I worked in a smaller district, it was fine, because you didn't get as many applicants. But when you're looking at, if it's a big school district, and that's another thing that you want to research, if it's a big district, you can bet a lot of people are going to apply for those, and there's nothing on Teach in Alabama that makes you stand out, because it just looks like 500 English teachers on there. So it would not hurt to make that initial introduction with your resume, if that is somewhere that you're really interested in working. We do a lot, and this is something that I have seen. We do a lot of, we will go to, like, I'll come to you, Dr. Sheik, and say, hey, do you have any English teachers? Or I may go to UAB and say, hey, do you have any, speech therapists? Or that's what we do a lot, because usually if we can see, if that person can recommend someone, and we can match it on, on Teach in Alabama, then that's who we're going to pull, because it kind of gives us a little bit of a filter. It keeps us from having to go through and, and that's not to say that your resume is not going to get recognized on Teach in Alabama, because we do have people that go through and look at all those things. But sometimes it's, when you have somebody that can vouch for that person, it saves us a lot of time. And that's not to say that just because you know somebody, but that may help you get into the interview, and then you have to do the rest of the work once you get into the interview, to say, okay, oh, that person that Dr. Sheik recommended really did a great job on the interview. So there's two things: you did a great interview, and someone knows you. I may give you a chance. So it never hurts to do that.
We recently had some candidates ask us to write recommendation letters saying that their district required it. That was very new to me, to hear that from someone. Is Jefferson County doing that?
So we don't require it. We don't require it, but I do know that a lot of people are asking for that, and I'll tell you why. Just because we get people that, I guess, slip through the cracks. They appear to be a great person, and then they come in and not necessarily, they just don't work out. I guess that's, and then that hurts the students in the long run, because then here we are in the middle of the school year, and we've got to look for a new teacher. So I think that's where those recommendation letters are helpful.
We don't want to know.
Hey.
So if I'm interviewing at like my high school, I went to a K-12 school, so if I'm interviewing there and I'm alumni, is it appropriate for me to say that I'm alumni from there?
I definitely would. I would definitely say that. Like I said, anything that can make people stand apart. And I'll tell you that me, as an administrator, if I knew that you were an alumni of that school, then I am probably going to think that you're a little bit invested in that school. So I would probably think, well, if this is the school that she went to, this is the community that she grew up in, she's going to be committed to making sure that she's gonna be good for this school. I feel like that, and I bet a lot of them do.
Thank you.
One thing I will tell you this, sometimes, especially if it's, I don't know if you live in a small community, but in a small community, what we see there is that those people, most of the time, it's full of community people, and those people stay there until it's time for them to retire. So it's kind of hard to get in those. So don't put all your eggs in that basket, because there may or may not be an opportunity for you to get in.
Yes, ma'am.
a lot of people do get lucky, but a lot of people don't, and they get disappointed, and I don't want you to be. But you could definitely let them know that you're interested, so that if something did come up or if someone was going to retire, that then you could definitely get that interview.
Yes, ma'am. Morgan, Rittenhouse. This is your opportunity. Please ask Dr. Fluker questions that you want to ask Dr. Washington or me.
Well, she answered most of my questions.
I told you I probably would, but I bet I didn't. I bet I didn't answer them all. I will say that Morgan told me that she had an interview with just the principal, and we don't see that a whole lot anymore. So that was a unique opportunity, because I think that more and more people are going toward the panel interview, just so that lots of people can put their eyes on this person, lots of people can give their opinions of this person. So I'm really shocked that you just had one person, because that doesn't happen very often anymore. Used to be that way, but now I think, remember I talked about that collaboration? I think principals now are wanting to collaborate. They're even asking teachers to be in on the interview, so they can look and see, is this somebody that is going to be a good fit for our department? So let's say they're hiring a 6th grade teacher. It is not uncommon for them to ask other 6th grade teachers on the team to be a part of the interview, just because they want to, they want to hear your ideas. They want to hear what you're going to say about collaboration. They want to hear what opportunities you've had. They want to know if you're going to be able to work with them. And sometimes they'll tell you things about what they do or how they do things. They may do shared lesson planning, and they talk about that and how do you feel about that and those types of things. So I'm really shocked that you had that. I mean, it's good. It's less intimidating, but honestly, the format now is more of the group panel interviews.
Okay, Dr. Fluker, I won't ask anymore.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And they may just need to think about it all. I gave a lot of information. I bet y'all are just probably processing it all, and I definitely understand that. So
we appreciate you so much helping us.
You are welcome. I will send this recording to you when it generates.
So much. We'll share that with Camry, who wasn't able to be here today.
Okay.
She's going to be interviewing really soon.
Yes.
For all of this.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was good to see you.
So
And nice to meet you, Dr. Washington.
Too. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Y'all have a good rest of the day.
Thanks. Okay, thank you. Okay, ladies.